All right, our very last deformer. So if you haven't watched the previous deformer videos, you can go ahead and do that. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and start with Polymesh 3D Star. Let's go into edit mode. I'm going to change Matcap Gray. Hit W to bring our gizmo up. And I'm going to swap this out with another primitive. So if you haven't watched the primitive swapping video, go ahead and grab that one. I'm just going to change this out with a cylinder 3D. And of course, when I start dragging these around, we can change the X, Y, and V divides. I'm going to give myself a bit of resolution. And again, you can go ahead and change the inner radius if you want to. Let's say I like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit W to go out of gizmo mode, and we're going to stretch this thing along here. Actually, you know what? Let's go back into gizmo here. We'll go back to our cylinder 3D, and I'm going to change my V divides up because I know I'm going to stretch this thing out. So hit W again, go ahead and change this out. So now we got a little bit more resolution to play with. So now that we have that, let's go into our last deformer here. We'll choose bend curve. So let's select bend curve. Just like the other deformers, you're going to see some cones out here and some dots. So we played around with symmetrical with a few of the deformers, and in here you can do it as well. You can choose if you want it to be symmetrical across the X, Y, or Z axis. Now the special thing about this one is the X, Y, and Z axis is controlled by which axis you choose to put your dots in. So you can see we have two dots here. Just to make this a little bit more clear, I'm going to change this curve resolution. So I'm just going to crank this up. We'll put like 5 dots in there. And then for my axis one, this is the little red cone here. I'm going to change this from the X axis. You can change it to the Y axis. So X is left and right. So if I hit W, you're going to see here's our X-axis. In fact, let's not hit W. Let's hit W to go back into the form. Let's turn on the floor. If I go down the bottom here, you're going to see Z forward, X and Y is to the right, and then X is to the right and left, and then Y is up and down. So let's go ahead and turn the floor off, and we'll change our axis to the Z axis, which is 3, because that's going to go down the length of our object here. So now you see our dots are spaced out along this direction of the object. So let's start playing with these dots. So each one of these dots, if you touch it and drag it around, you're going to see it's deforming the object. If you snap your camera to the right just by holding down shift and snapping as you're navigating, you can grab it and move it along one axis, but of course you're not constrained to that axis. You can go ahead and just move this to the right, to the left. However, if you go grab this green cone here, you can choose, yes, I want that symmetrical, and now when I drag that off, it's going to be symmetrical down the Z. So choose that if you want that on. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now. Let's talk about some more of these options. So what I can do is I can take this dot and I can move this one up, and I can move this one down, I can move this one forward, left and right, however you want to do that. You're going to see as I move these dots around, it's causing the geometry to deform. If I want to smooth these transitions out, I can go to this little cone right here and kind of change that smooth so it just really is either a sharper transition or a very much softer transition through these dots. We'll go ahead and leave it sharp for now. And let's try some more of these options. Let's go ahead and select this dot right here. And instead of moving it around, which we can do, let's choose scale. So with scale chosen, we can either scale this up or scale this down. You can do this for any dot. So if I choose this dot here and scale it up, scale it down, we can kind of taper this off a little bit. We can take this one, we can inflate it a little bit with scale. You can also go through here and you can squeeze it. So you can squeeze it across that axis. Or take this one and you can squeeze it here. Or you can go ahead and scale it. And you've also got a twist. So you can either twist this geometry, let's choose this one. We can twist it right down here. So you can see we can just twist right down that axis here. Now while you're playing with this shape, let's say, you know what, I wish I had a little bit more resolution. That's pretty easy to dial in. Just go back to this curve resolution, and as you dial this in, it'll just put more dots right along that line that you have chosen. So now you can go through here and grab even more of these dots here. We can start moving these things around. Of course, if you're going to be doing this kind of deformation, you may want to go over here and choose that smoothness and kind of just smooth out those transitions just a bit. Just a couple more cool things on here. So we go to the side here and we hover over this. You're going to see we have shift as a line. So you're dragging a dot around. What you can do is you can hold down shift and that'll constrain it to the y-axis here. You can drag it left and right and that'll kind of shift it to the z-axis in this case. So you can kind of align your dots along a single axis. Another thing you might notice is there's a little red area right around that dot. If you hold down Alt and drag that out, that's going to put in an offset. So let's go ahead and snap our camera view to the side here. We're going to hold down Alt and just drag on this, and it's going to throw out a little offset cone. Now with this offset cone, you can actually just go and grab that later on and move that around. So you can go through here and start offsetting these as well. So if you want to go ahead and take this bend, add a little bit more of an offset, and then later on that'll just be a cone you can grab. So we go back to this one here. We can go ahead and choose offset, and then continue, of course, to scale and squeeze and twist however we'd like. So just a little bit of added functionality. Another interesting thing you can do with this, let's go ahead and hit the comma key, go to our tool. Let's go here to Z-Sketch. Let's grab one of these creatures. Let's go ahead and grab the Z-Sketch Shrimpy, double click this one, go into hide. Go down here to the Unified Skin menu under the Tool menu and hit Make Unified Skin. If you grab the Skin Z-Sketch, that's going to be actual geometry here. So if I go over here to the Subtool, turn off Poly Paint, and turn off polyframe, you're going to see we have a cool little creature to kind of mess with. So what I can do now is hit W, go to the gear, add our bend curve, and now we can kind of start adding bend curve lines. So if I go over here to the axis here, let's choose the y-axis, which is more up and down. Again, if we want to reposition this so the axis is following our character a little bit more closely, what we can do is hit W, hold down Alt, and just kind of rotate this around a little bit. So now when we hit W, go into the gear, choose our bend curve. Now our bend curve is a little bit more closely aligned with our object here. Let's go ahead and change that resolution. We'll just drop that down a bit. And again, the resolution is going to be dependent on how much influence you want each one of these dots to have. So if we want to start having a little bit of fun with this, we can do is start grabbing these dots here, and let's make a new creature. And you can, again, you're not just necessarily constrained, and of course you can turn on mirror like we already went over here, but if you want to start making new creature stuff, you can start using these bend deformers around. Again, if you want to smooth these transitions out, you can go ahead and just go in here and smooth. You can start inflating and deflating, or in this case scaling, and then of course you can squeeze stuff if you want to. So let's go ahead and take this one here, and then go ahead and twist this around, scale it up or down. Let's take the smooth, and we'll go ahead and smooth out our transitions a bit. Let's take some of these bends and really just go crazy with these shapes here. And just remember that each one of these things, you can scale it up, squeeze it down, or hold down Alt, throw in that offset, and now you have an offset alongside those curves. So we go down here, hold down Alt, and throw in an offset. You can leave your curve behind and just have an offset, forcing that mesh out a little bit more. So have fun with this one. This is a really interesting one to go ahead and get some really quick, nice creature designs. Gives you a little bit more freedom than some of the other deformers. Like if you really wanted to wrap something, you couldn't necessarily use, for instance, a bend deformer or a lattice deformer. Those are going to be a little bit more restricted, but this thing, you can just go nuts. So feel free to use this one to kind of give yourself a little bit more deformation freedom. One more thing I want to mention, and I probably should have mentioned on the other deformers too, deformers respect masking. So if I mask all this stuff off and then I start using these deformers, it's not going to touch the masked area. So feel free to use that as well to kind of protect certain areas of your mesh while you're working with them.